All right, with that, let's bring Richard Proctor on. Richard Proctor, provost.institute.com. The constitutionality of all of this is in question. Do we even have a constitution? But something that was said, it was about the economic factor of this. The money is being pushed into the system. And by the way, provost.institute.com for Bathroom Economics. It's a great book. It's a super book if you haven't read it. Even in the post-constitutional world or United States, Bathroom Economics, there it is. It's one of my favorite economic books, but it helps you understand the system today. The system now is designed to crash. It's not sustainable. The influx of money into the American system, folks. This is going to bring about the Great Reset. So if you want to know the structure that is being attacked, that's going to and dismantled to bring in the Great Reset, read Bathroom Economics, read the Liberty series, and even if it's just for posterity's sake, read Saving the Constitution. And also, Richard Proctor has every week a specific podcast on a specific topic. It's called Saving the Constitution with Richard Proctor. Go to Rumble. There it is. Bookmark that website. Follow, subscribe, whatever you do, but watch it. Because it's a download of 1 hour download, roughly 1 hour download of information that you need to know. And it's through the lens of the United States Constitution and our founding documents. Richard Proctor, thank you for your patience, flexibility. And I have to say this, apparently some sort of snafu communication happened. We were going to have Clay on today, and I got a cancellation notice when we didn't even have the everything set up. So I was waiting for somebody to set it up, and it didn't happen. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure it was on my end, but it just kind of went south. So we'll try to get him on next time. Richard Proctor, provost.institute.com. Welcome.
Good to be here, Guy. Good to be here.
Yeah.
I listened to your discussion here about Lou Grant and that show in the 70s.
Remember that?
And I don't remember that one, but I do remember in 1920, Walter Lippmann was assigned to do the task of writing the articles to control the media. That was his Council on Federal Relations, FDR, or whatever the initials are.
CFR, Council on Foreign Relations.
That's it. He was assigned that task in 1920 to control the news.
Yeah.
And our buddy Alan Drury wrote about that in a book called Capable and Honored, to show the people what's going on in the news. And that's way back in the 50s the book was written.
Yep.
And in the 20s, Walter Lippmann had that assignment. Anyway, guys,
I just want to say this. It is your history. The stuff that you point out in history is so important for people to understand, especially young people today. I beg of you, folks, if you're parents of younger people, middle school, high school, please introduce them to Richard Proctor's material and the material of which he speaks. Go ahead, sir, and the time's yours.
Yeah, I mentioned the other day somewhere, I don't know where, I mentioned things so many places, that every family with children or grandchildren should have a copy of both the Constitution, if you can keep it, and Easily Understood Economics. Just one copy per household works, because you can use the book over and over again with different children as long as you take out the answers and allow them to answer on sheets of paper. Folks, they need to know this stuff. They're not getting it in school. Even if you're not homeschooling, you can give your young child an assignment in the evening to read and write and answer the questions. And if they can't, have them read it again. Folks, you need to do this. Our people need to know. Homeschooling doesn't matter. These two books will help your children understand what's going on in economics and the Constitution. And you'll never get it anywhere else in the system of education. These two books are the only ones that are teaching economics as it should be and the Constitution as it should be for the youth. And the others are the only two teaching it for the adults. That's called Bathroom Economics and Saving the Constitution. They're the only ones for the adults, the same subject. Folks, this needs to happen. And I'm just mentioning it. Now, Doug, you mentioned a few minutes ago another item about money. What's the drive here? Well, yes, money's the drive, but the main thrust of that money, the main amount, the main target, the main source, the main foundation is our debt structure. Every debt you have, anybody, even if you use a credit card, anytime you use a credit card, see, that's debt. Anytime you use a credit card, anytime you borrow money of any sort from any bank or federal a credit union, anytime you borrow from those organizations or use a credit card from those organizations, you are a part of creating the money to destroy our economy, our country, our lives. How? Because every payment you make is profit to the bank since they paid it with funny money anyway. They didn't pay it with any cash in their vault. They paid it with funny money. So since it was funny money, it was money created. And money that's created in the banking system can be used 9 times. And every bit of the profit of all that created money goes to the Federal Reserve every day. And from the Federal Reserve to the owners of the Federal Reserve, which are major banks in the US, which are a part of the Federal Reserve System and a part of the European banking system. So the profits from those banks all go to the European banking system. And in the European banking system, their owners are the Rothschild Group, the Illuminati. And they're the people who then transport that money back into the United States and by our politicians, Soros, Gates, they're 2 of them. They're the same. That's what they're doing. That's where the money comes from. Gates went in there with $60 billion, I think. I don't think he's touched a dime of that, just made more. They give him the money he needs, or he's a part of receiving the money he needs, just like all the rest of them. And we, in our debt system, are sending it to him. We have a consumer debt of over $21 trillion. That's not the federal debt. That's consumer debt. That's debt that we have signed the dotted line saying we will pay. Every dime of every payment on all of those loans goes as profit to the international banking establishment, and they bring it back and control our country. We are digging our own grave with this debt structure. It was started mainly in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was established for the purpose of creating debt, for the purpose of controlling our country. All the way back to 1913, the Federal Reserve was established for the purpose that I just went through just now. And that's the way it is, isn't it? That's the rest of the story. That's what it is, guys. It's terrible. And we're part and parcel thinking that we're helping ourselves. Don't borrow money unless you have to for a car or a house or something like that. Don't borrow money. Now, I talked last week about the cashless society. Well, we didn't call it that. We called it coin shortage. That's what we called it, coin shortage. That's not what it was. It's to go into the cashless society. What is the cashless society? We're back in economics again, but it's all constitution, economics. That's why my degree is political economics. You see, political economics, they tie together like a glove in hand. They're a part of it. So the cashless society is a way to force you to use credit cards or other checks, anything, as long as it goes through the Federal Reserve System. You write a check for $1.50, Federal Reserve System sees it. You use your credit card for $1.50, the Federal Reserve System sees it. And they know where you are, what you're doing, what you're buying, and who you're buying it for. But if you use cash, here's a $10 bill, give me back $9.95 in change. They have no idea you did it. That's why they don't want you to have cash. All right, so what's the answer? Use cash anytime you can, and they can't track you. Now, I know we're going to use cash. You got to have a wheelbarrow. You know, those American flyers. I mentioned that before. American flyers, those red wheel little wagons that we used to carry around as kids. You got to have one of those with all the coins in the back so that you can go in and use cash. Plus, you have to have your wallet jam-packed with every $1, 25, 10, or 20. They don't have anything above a 20. So if you're going to go down and make a $600 purchase, your wallet's really got to be full to make a $600 purchase. That's 30 bills of $20 each. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I saw this going on in Brazil. I saw it. People were going to the bank. The conto was the highest bill. It was 1,000 cruzeiros. Conto, 1,000. But that was the highest bill there was. but the exchange rate of $1 was 230, so $4 bought a conto. That's nothing. $4 is nothing. And a conto is really nothing. We sometimes paid our maids in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 cruzeros each time, so a conto is twice. That's how it worked. You just heard, didn't you? Did the math. We paid our maids $2 a month. Yes, it was not a bad deal. Anyway, here we go. Those people would have cardboard boxes when they went to the bank. 8.5 by 11? No. 2 foot by 4 foot by 1 foot deep. That kind of cardboard box. And they took elastic bands and put the 1,000 lira notes, the contos, the 1,000 lira notes, 10 in a bag, 10 in a folder. And then they put it in stacks in the box. I saw the boxes. I saw the stacks. That's what's going on. They want us to have to use cards, and they're trying to destroy the use of cash. Brazil had cards to use rather than just cash, because they didn't have those. This is 1960. We didn't have them yet either. But if they had cards, then they would use the cards rather than carry the box. And that's the goal. Right now, they want you to stop using cash. They like it when you do a 5-cent package, a 5-cent purchase with a credit card. They like it because they know you're going to use it for everything. Think about that. A 5-cent purchase with a credit card, a 5-cent purchase with a check. Oh my, the checks to process, they'll cost $1 anyway by the time the banks all run, all the people that handle all the stuff that goes on. Checks cost $2 or $3, maybe that high to process everything, but they want you to use them nonetheless so that they can know where you were, what you bought. And it's all very clear. Now they pretend like it's for advertising, and it is, but more than that, it's for Bluffdale, Utah to keep track of you so they'll know what you're doing in your life. And if that's okay with you, congratulations. It's not okay with me. I carry a wallet with my credit cards in sleeves so they can't track the sleeves, the cards where they go. That chip allows them to track you every time you drive through one of those cameras in the intersections. Bingo! Because you have a card in your pocket. They can track you. It's called tracking the population. Now, all of this wasn't available when I wrote the series, Liberty series. I don't know which volume it is, but keeping track of the population is a major section in one of those, which brings me to another point. My mind goes like fury, and I hope you can keep up. Here we go. I do a program on Patreon every third Tuesday, 9 Eastern time. Now, we've only done one, and people were there, and we answered questions, and we chatted, and that kind of stuff. Now I'm going to start a program so that people will know kind of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to begin Volume 1 Preface and go through every section in the Liberty series all the way to the last section in Volume 6. Each month we'll cover some part and work our way through the volumes. Why? You can read them. I don't have to do that. No, I want you to get a feel of why I wrote it. Why did I write that preface in Volume 1? What's the background? Why did I do that? Then not only that, in that preface, you're going to find that the governments have killed millions of their people. Well, that's an easy statistic to roll off your tongue. What does it mean when you're one of those people? Just one. And I'm going to try to help people understand the actual meaning of these statistics, the actual meaning of what's happening, the identity of who's doing it to us, and why they are doing it. All of these. But I want them to get right down in the emotional part to understand in reality how it would affect you individually if the same thing happened in the United States. And it is beginning. So I'm trying to help people understand precisely what it's like for them when they get involved or would get involved in one of these things. Folks, this is a scary time. It's biblically quoted. Yes, it is. So we're ready for it, right? No, we're not. No, we're not ready for it. I mentioned this. I guess I mentioned this on the podcast yesterday. The Lord knows all. Past, present, and future. He knows it all. So today is 2021. He knows exactly what's going to be happening in 2030 because the future's in front of him, past, present, and future. That's what omniscient means, everything. So here we have the Lord. He knows what's going to be happening in 30. And if we're bad, he knows that what's going to happen to us when we're bad. Bad means we follow the dictates of the dictatorship of Washington, D.C. So I said to the folks, let's fake him out and let's do good so it won't happen. Then I said, well, that's tongue-in-cheek, because if he knew everything, then he would know that we were going to try to fake him out and it would be good. And so then it will be. He knows it all. He wants us to have the good at the end of this course. He wants us to have the best possible lives. He doesn't want us to live in a dictatorship. He wants us to have the best possible lives. And all he wants us to do is live the commandments, specifically the 10 that Moses got off the mount. Those commandments, specifically. They're tough to do. Don't kill anybody. Don't lie. Don't steal. Don't covet. Those are the kinds of things it says. Honor me. Worship me as God, not Wicca. Those are the kinds of things it says. Don't worship an idol. Worship me. Graven image. Those are the things he says. Let's do those things. By the way, what could be an idol and a graven image? Your RV could be one. Your boat could be one. Money could be one. So you got to be careful about what you define as graven image. Some people are worshiping money and their boats and their trips and their weekends. Get in the car, go out. But on the weekend, we got to stop and do this, and this, and this. Oh, folks, are we living the 10? Just the 10. And if we're living the 10, he considers us righteous people. Therefore, he'll bless the nation if there are enough of us. Sodom and Gomorrah didn't have enough, therefore they're not with us anymore. Only 4 left the city. Only 3 got to the mountain. Okay, folks, that's what I talked about. God knows what's going to happen. He wants the best for us. And he's blessing us every time we do his commandments. Now, this wasn't supposed to be a ministry today. I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court today. So we're going to change course again. That'll be 3 times, 4 times in the last 10 minutes?
You're allowed, brother. Okay,
here we go. I'm going to talk about 4 separate decisions of the Supreme Court. I don't know. I don't know exactly what my time's left. I know it's 11:30 by my clock, but everything that's happened, I don't know if I'm going to stop it at 10 minutes after 12 or not. So I'm just going to aim for what happens. The first one I want to talk about. Remember, this is the Supreme Court. What do? They decide about the constitutionality of all the laws. Well, that's not what they're supposed to decide, but that's what they do. And we accept it. We say, oh, yeah, the Supreme Court said it. It must be true. Okay, well, now let me see. I want you to answer this question. The Supreme Court said this in United States versus Butler, 1936. The Supreme Court said to Congress, you can spend any money you want, regardless of what the Constitution says. So you don't have to worry about Article 1, Section 8, paragraphs 1 through 17. They're not important. Just set it aside and do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about the welfare that was meant in the preamble and in Article 1, Section 8, paragraph 1. Don't worry about what that said. That's not important. Do whatever you want. Redefine welfare to be taking care of any one person anytime one person needs anything. I needed a stick of gum the other day, and so I went down to the government and got money and went out and got a stick of gum. Well, no, I really didn't, did I? But there's a whole bunch of people going down to the welfare office to get their checks or their money this week or month. Same thing. I just did it with a stick of gum. And that brings us to welfare. No, that doesn't bring us to that. Stop. It brings us to another item in that same case, United States versus Butler, 1936. See, that's where I wanted to stay. After they talked about what Congress could spend their money on, and they were very clear, you can spend it on anything you want. Which means that Martha's TV set. Anything you want. They also said right after that, just a few paragraphs, anything the Supreme Court says, they didn't say it that way, they said anything we say is constitutional. We are the Constitution. We decide what it says. We decide everything that goes on in this country. We decide states' constitution. We decide states' laws. We decide states' votes. We decide everything that happens. Now, I'm talking about all federal judges, not just the Supreme Court. It's all the same package. The federal judges, Supreme Court, and all the other courts, federal courts, all the same package with all the same rules and all the same goals. So here we have federal court saying we can say anything we want, and it is constitutional. Does that ring true to you? It's right there in black and white. All you got to do is look up U.S. versus Butler, 1936, and read it for yourself.
It may ring accurate in terms of, if that was not a rhetorical question, it may ring accurate in terms of what they stated, but is it consistent with the laws of the land, the Constitution? No.
Well, see, that's the key. That's the key, folks. Anybody with a modicum of intelligence and knows how to read just a little bit can go to Article 6 of the Constitution, where it says in paragraph 2 that the Constitution is the foundation of this country's law. Then it says, right after that, the laws of the United States that are in accordance with the Constitution are the supreme law of the land. Both of those statements are true. But if the Congress makes a law that's not in accordance with the Constitution, i.e. the Money Act of the Corporation Act of 1871, that's not in accordance with the Constitution, therefore not valid. It's very simple, guys. Just a minute, I got to scratch my nose. Somebody's talking about me somewhere. But anyway, see, so that's what paragraph 2 says. Then it goes on one more step, and this one the Supreme Court doesn't know anything about. Well, they really don't know anything about either of those two paragraphs. But the next part of that same, so this is paragraph 2 now still. Any treaty made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States. Well, now that's what it says precisely. What is the authority of the United States? Nobody bothers to ask that. It's the Constitution and the laws made in accordance with the Constitution. See how simple that is? So a treaty that is not in accordance with the Constitution and not in accordance with the laws of the United States is null and void. And that means the UN better move its property, its stuff off our property, because it's an illegal organization in our country. That's what it means. We signed it. We send money to them. We send most of their budget. What are we doing? How stupid are we? Here we have a section of the Constitution in Article 6, which is precisely correct, inspired by God, says if the treaty does not go in accordance with this document and the laws of the United States made in this document, the treaty is null and void. Out of here. Gone. And it doesn't make how many senators ratify it. It ain't true nonetheless. And the fact the senators violated it tells you how much they know about Article 6, paragraph 2. Then we go into paragraph 3. Same section, same article. Go into paragraph 3. And it says I'm paraphrasing now, I'm not going to quote, it's too long to quote this. I'm going to say it just succinctly and completely. Every person in government, elected person in government, every executive, legislature, judicial, in any government, federal or state, I better not say any, federal or state government, any federal or state government must swear an oath or an affirmation to support this Constitution. Okay, well, there you have it. So now we know who the foundation is. In paragraph 2, we know what the laws are in paragraph 2. We know what's legal and what's not. Now we go to paragraph 3, and it says, and every one of you dudes signed an oath, took an oath that you're going to support the Constitution. So immediately that you ratified the Treaty of the UN, you are not taking your oath, and you should be now impeached. We have many people in Washington, D.C. that don't utter a word anytime during any day of the year that wouldn't cause them to be impeached if we follow the Constitution correctly. I was asked the question, if you had anything you could do, anything you could say to the colonists in 1787, 1778, when they were writing the Constitution, what would you say to them to add to it, to fix the problems we're seeing today? And I said, well, let me tell you what I would say. I would say, follow the Constitution. We don't need anything new. It's all there. All we have to do is follow the document. He didn't really like that, so he kept asking me more questions, and I kept going back to follow the Constitution. It is accurate. It's an inspired document. If we would just follow the Constitution, 99% of the problems we have with government would be gone. But that following the Constitution had to begin in 1790, 18 months after ratification. Already violated the Constitution significantly. What was that violation? That was the violation of the number of representatives in Congress. I'm not precisely sure. This is in volume 6, but I'm just going to guess at it. Should have had 160, 161, 139, 140, and we had 60. What happened to the others? They violated the 30,000 rule. They changed it to 50,000, didn't ask anybody. And that's what the number is, 50,000. And 50 or 60,000 went up all the way to the Civil War. Never 30,000. And it's never been 30,000 since. Now, it's interesting to note that there was a Bill of Rights amendment. It was actually the first one in the list they sent to Congress that revoked the 30,000 and changed it to 50,000. And it never even saw the light of day. Again, that same group of people in the convention threw it out just as fast as they threw out the other one. Yet they were already violated. It was already violated in 90. And we're talking now when the Bill of Rights went to them. Oh, guys, this is really something. We have one group of people, the convention itself, saying absolutely must be 30,000. We have another group of people, the government itself, saying no, it's 50,000. And guess who got away with it? The government. And the Constitution lost. And that's the first violation. And it's been getting worse and worse today. It's not 30,000. It's not 50,000. It's not 100,000. It's not 200,000. It's not 500,000. It's 800, nearly 800,000 representatives should be in, let me rephrase that. 800,000 people per representative, and 10,000 to 11,000 representatives should be in Congress. And we have 435.
We're going to need a bigger building.
Yeah, we would. Football stadium would work just fine. And if anybody's watched the Star Wars features, they're going to see Star Wars. I'm sure it's Star Wars, not Star Trek. Could be either one. So in one of those two, you're going to see a whole cadre of people out in little rooms all the way to the top of the building, and that's their planet representation. We don't really need a building like this. We got computers. Right now I'm talking on Zoom. I have no idea what you're talking on, but the whole world is seeing us and if we hooked up a few more things, they could feed back questions to us and we could communicate with each other. It can be done. They don't need a bigger building. They just need to use current stuff and bring their computer stuff up to date. So stop spying on us with computer stuff and fix your problem with computer stuff and get 10,000 representatives there like you're supposed to. And then we would have our representation. But right now, taxation without representation of 1770s is in vogue in the United States and has been since 1913. Taxation without representation began in 1913. There you have it. We're not complaining about it, though. The colonists knew better, but we don't. Now, that's what the Supreme Court has done to us in anything we say is constitutional. So they already told Congress they could do whatever they want. And now they said, anything we say is constitutional. That whole discussion just now was about that sentence. Next.
Wow.
Let's go to another.
I just want people to understand how important what you just said is, especially in light, and I'm just going to drop this here, in light of the decision about eviction moratoriums. I'll just leave that there. But what you just said, oh my gosh, that's so important. Continue, sir. Please.
I would ask you to please continue with what you were talking about moratoriums. Help me know that for sure.
Okay. How can I put this? The Supreme Court ruled because of the scamdemic, the eviction. Okay, so the courts ruled that you could not evict somebody who was behind on their rent because of the emergency declaration regarding the and that went to an upper
I'm really
court.
Up to date on that.
Okay, so
now
go ahead.
The Supreme Court, now I'm not familiar with this, so I'm just guessing at what you're saying. The Supreme Court has ruled that that's completely constitutional, right?
Yes. Depending on which question, how you were asking that question, but yes, that's constitutional. Yes, go ahead.
In other words, the Supreme Court, in their wisdom, has told the people and the banks and the finance agencies that they cannot collect rent, or they cannot collect money against its rent too, against money that the people owe them for living in the home they're living in or the apartment they're living in, and that's constitutional.
No, they said that they can evict. Let me just pull this up because this is so important. I don't want.
That's backwards.
Okay,
that's backwards.
See, okay, here's again. Let me just be very clear on this because I don't want to misquote anything.
I don't want to agree with the Supreme Court though. Anyway, so be very clear.
The CDC announces new eviction ban despite Supreme Court threat. This is now, I'm actually quoting a leftist. This is from Politico. Now, I'll just read this and then take it for what it's worth. The Biden regime, that's my word, on Tuesday announced a new targeted federal eviction ban to replace the one that expired over the weekend. So there was a ban. You couldn't evict somebody because we're in a crisis. Oh my gosh, the world's ending. So it set up a potential clash with the Supreme Court. The CDC, their new ban will apply to counties experiencing high levels of community transmission of COVID-19 and it'll last until October 3rd. Now, let's see here. Where does the Supreme Court come in on this? Boy, a lot of words without saying much.
It's called doublespeak.
Yeah, the Supreme. Okay, I'm going to get away from this. The Supreme. Okay, the Supreme Court news about eviction. Essentially, the Supreme Court stated, blame the Supreme Court for the lapse eviction moratorium, not the White House. Okay, we're going to go to Vox. Maybe they'll use less words and more meaning. So on Sunday, a federal eviction moratorium, which intended to prevent renters from losing their homes in the midst of a pandemic, expired. At its height, let me see here. On Sunday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her Democratic leadership team put out a perplexing statement. Although the Supreme Court bears primary responsibility for the end of the eviction moratorium because of previous litigation in the federal system that went to the Supreme Court, and that's my insertion there, we're going to extend it regardless of what the Supreme Court says. There it is. So in other words,
I think that's very interesting. I have to agree with the Supreme Court decision once, well, several more times than that. But there's one time when if that's exactly what they did, they got it exactly right.
Okay.
I hate to say that.
Hate to say it, but yeah.
Right.
No.
But,
yeah.
but who do you think is behind this whole thing? You don't have to pay your rent or your mortgage. The World Economic Forum is behind it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
World Economic Forum. Because you see, this is what's happening. Just think about this. Put it all together. That's what you have to do. You have to put all together. Last year, people stopped paying their rent because they couldn't pay it. Then they got permission to not pay it. All the way up until now. Then they put it back in again so they could continue to do it. Who causes that? Well, it's the people behind. It's the international banking establishment, the banks, the power, the money. Why? Have you ever heard of the Great Reset, the debt reset? Of course you have. What is the debt reset going to do? Absolve you from having to pay your mortgage. All of a sudden now we have millions of people who are going to be homeless the minute the pandemic is over and they have to pay their rent and they can't. So now they'll put in the Great Reset and everybody will say, oh, we're for that because we'll get to keep our home and we won't be kicked out. Do you see the pattern here evolving?
Thank you. Yes.
That's what this is all about, guys.
Yes.
Because more people will want the debt reset because there so many are going to be kicked out of their homes the minute that emergency thing goes away. The same minute.
So one can argue that the Supreme Court in this specific decision is actually facilitating the Great Reset.
Yes, you can, absolutely.
Okay.
They're making a correct statement, and it's facilitating the Great Reset. Yes. Biden and Pelosi and company want to continue it, but at some point, the Great Reset will be needed. So then they'll stop it. So all the people that are going to lose their homes have got to do something or go out on the street. I mean, think about it for a minute. Here's a guy who hasn't paid his rent. Now, my current requirement to pay mortgage is $1,800 a month. Now, if I had that for 18 months, I would now owe $32,400. How many people have $32,400 sitting around? And if you don't have the full amount, the banks will take your home. You don't have the full amount, the banks will take your home. They don't let you put it on the end. They say they might, but they don't have to. The contract doesn't put it on the end. They say they're going to put it on the end. But the bankers could turn around and say, no, we're not going to put it on the end. It's not a part of the contract. The contract is up on January the 15th, 2030, and that's when it's up. We're not going to add another year and make it 31. You're going to pay it now or you're out. Then here comes the Great Reset. The government says, tell you what, if you'll just take the Great Reset, simple, just sign this paperwork, and you will be able to stay in your home. And you won't lose it because you don't have $32,400. Now, the small print at the bottom of the Great Reset says, when you sign this, your property becomes property of the government. That's what it says, small print at the bottom. But you still get to stay there until a month, 2, 3 months down the line when they move other people into your home and you either move into one room or you move out. Because you don't own your home anymore the minute you sign the Great Reset. Sure, you don't have to pay the $32,400 because the banks will take it from you. So you sign for the Great Reset and then the government takes you from you. What difference does it make? Folks, we're being snagged in every way possible. And it's all being controlled by the same group of people. It's all being controlled by the same group of people. You must understand, this is economics, this is politics, all put together. And you've got to see both sides as they mesh and become one to your detriment. And unless you understand these things, you won't understand what's going to happen. Oh my.
So there is no difference, and we've said this before, and I just want people to really understand this. You know, we talk, or the big Democrat Republican. No, 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 no. It's globalist versus populist, or it's actually the globalists versus everyone else. And
That's it. Exactly.
you know, and by the way, communism is not the. I can't remember who said this. If it was you, communism is not the end game objective here. Communism is a stopping point to the global governance. It is a means.
That's socialism. When you get to that, it's socialism. Because
Right.
socialism means the government controls everything. Either they own it or they control it. Fascism means that they control it. Communism means that they own it. But the end result is the same. They do what they want with it. So they'll just take your property. And that's what they did in the 20s in Russia. They just took the property. Now they didn't go down and take the shack of the poor guy. They went up and took the wealth of the rich guy, of which everybody in the United States is, whether they know it or not. Everybody in the United States is among the rich guys. I don't care if you're on the welfare rolls, you're still among the rich guys. Why? Because you live in this country. And since we've developed such a tremendous homeless society now, the government needs someplace to put those people. And here comes the Great Reset. Now they're going to put those people someplace. Did you hear that? Did you understand that?
May I interject a question here?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was talking about the how basically this entire thing that we've seen is an intelligence operation, in my view. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we could not have gotten as quickly to the point where we're at had it not been for this SARS-CoV-2 pandemic and the response to that.
Yes, that's right. That's
Okay.
right. We're there because of stuff started in January 20.
Right. So this was diabolically planned out by the likes of globalists like Gates and Klaus Schwab.
Soros.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
You're going through the numbers. You're going through the names.
Okay. So, and this ties back to the Liberty series that you wrote. These are different generations, but the same groups to
That's
the
right.
same end. Okay.
Same end, not the same people. They died. Some of them died in the 1700s. Nonetheless, their children are still of the same ilk because they live lives of tremendous luxury. And they don't want to lose that.
Okay. Okay. So this makes sense to me. And folks, you know, look, again, I want to reintroduce Richard Proctor, provistinstitute.com. Follow him. Bookmark that website. It's in the program description box. Subscribe to his Rumble channel. Get his books. But I'm telling you something. Listen to what he's got to say, because he is, again, I like connecting dots. I like taking boards with yarn on it, index cards, and connecting the various people. Support them on Patreon. There it is, right there. It's an easy thing to do. So we have this knowledge. Keep coming. Go ahead, sir.
And then that $15 range, we're going to have our private meetings with the people who are willing. And we're going to talk about the Liberty series, just like I just talked about, trying to bring it together. That's a piece of how we're going to talk on that. We're going to talk about how all these things are interchangeable. Who's doing them to us in a political and economic situation, because that's what the book's about. We're going to start with preface of volume 1 and go until we get to the last section of volume 6.
And that's, I've got to tell you, having the Liberty series, that's one heck of a feat, but it's doable.
It is not something we're going to read. We're going to talk about why I wrote it and what it meant to me when I wrote it.
Right.
And that's going to be entirely different than I talk about any place else. No seminar, no podcast, nothing on Doug's show here will be the same as this.
It's proprietary. And you know what? That's worth the price of admission. I'm going to tell you right now that alone would be worth the price of admission, given your level of knowledge, your experience, and the things you've written about. So I'm very impressed with how you're rolling this out. Continue,
Yeah.
sir.
I wanted people to know that they're going to have something different than I'm spewing forth in all the other places. So in the other places, I might touch these kinds of things, but I'm not going to go into the detail. The detail of, here's an example, just a real quick example. What happened in England when they sent 30 planes, bombers, B-29, B-30, B-25s, B-23s, B-25s. Later on, no, B-29s went to, it didn't matter. What happened when one of those planes went down? And how many came back? And what does that mean to the guys in the bar? I'm going to talk about that kind of thing. Personalize, not numbers. I'm going to personalize it. Every time a plane went down, 10 people died or were prisoners. Every time. They had to do 30 missions to be able to go home alive. And they lost a third of the planes every time they sent a mission out.
Wow. Did not know that.
That interesting. Think about it.
Yeah.
What's going on in England. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff. So people will understand why, what happened, and why I wrote about what I wrote about.
Okay.
Now, I wasn't going to talk about 4 decisions, but I don't think Eric's going to give me time to talk about 4 decisions.
We've got about 18 minutes left, so.
18 minutes. We just spent half an hour on one.
16 minutes. 16 minutes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
16 minutes. Okay, good. Lots of time. Let's go to another instance. This is the second one that I want. And you guys can look these up. Prague versus United States, 1931. This concept about how are we going to do amendments to the Constitution became a big deal in the 30s. Probably because of all of the stuff that was going on in the Democrat stuff with preparation for and inauguration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and all the banking stuff he did. But anyway, this is what had happened. There was a discussion about what does the Fifth Amendment say. Now, the Fifth Amendment really says there are 3 modes to ratify it. That's what the Fifth Article. The Fifth Article really says there are 3 modes to ratify the Constitution. One begins in the Congress, and when they send it out to the states and they've got to approve it. The other one begins with the states asking for a convention, which is what they've been doing and calling it a convention of states, but it's not. It's a constitutional convention. Whether people know that or understand it or not, it is a constitutional convention, and they can throw out our Constitution in its entirety when that starts. That's the second way they talk about amending a constitution. Now, when these people did it, that kind of going to the states and having those kinds of things ratified was normal. But it's not normal today. It hasn't been done for centuries. Then it says, there's ors and commas here. The first one, or the second one, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. Now, those are the words. Comma, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. The comma and the or set it apart to have 3, count them, 3 separate items ways to amend the Constitution. That was a problem. The federal government had no part of 3/4 thereof, conventions in 3/4 thereof. And the federal government didn't like that. So in the case, Sprague versus United States, the Supreme Court deleted the comma. That's all they did. They just deleted the comma. But deleting the comma made it read like this. As part of I'm reading from the Constitution now directly, starting at another's point, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. No comma means there's two ways. Because when you get no comma, then the ratification process, either by conventions in the states or by the legislatures. When you take the comma out, that's what the ratification process is. When you leave the comma in, now there's a third way to amend the Constitution. Without the comma, there are two ways. With the comma, there are three. And that's very important. Why do you think the colonists put a comma there? That's the why. You guys realize the what, who, where, when doesn't make a bit of difference. It's the why and the how that really matters. Now we're going to look at the why. Why did that comma get stuck there? Let's think back in the Constitutional Convention, 1787. They had what we know today as, or what they knew then as, Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Now, they didn't mean the Anti-Federalists weren't for the Constitution and the Federalists weren't for the Constitution and they were against each other. No. It meant Federalists, I want big, strong federal government. Anti-Federalists wanted strong state government. That's the difference. Big states wanted Federalists. Small states wanted states. That's the difference.
And okay, so the push now is for if that was today, the Federalists would be pushing for this. They'd be on the side of the globalists, the Federalists would. And I know that's really a broad brush statement. But
it's exactly precise today, too.
Okay.
Who are pushing hard for all the democratic stuff? California, New York. Who are pushing hard against it? All the small states. It's the same thing. Small states are responding to their people, more rural, more responding to their people. Big states are city states that have become socialized and they don't care. They want to have more and more socialized stuff. Give me more stuff. That's kind of the broad brush of what's happening today. So it's the same division. You see, guys, things just come around. They don't go once and never see them again. They just come around, but in different frameworks. So here we have anti-federalists and federalists in the convention, just like we have in Congress today. Although everybody in Congress today is a federalist. But anyway, so then the states were giving up power. Every state in there knew that they were giving their power, some of their power, to the federal government. Every state was aware that they were giving away some of their autonomy, and they didn't want it to happen. That's why the Constitution's written how it's written, to prevent the federal government from destroying our liberties and the states' rights. That's what the 10th Amendment's all about. Government, you can't do it if it's not written there. Well, what did we just read? U.S. versus Butler, Supreme Court said, doesn't matter if it's written there or not, you can still do it. Anyway, so that comma, removing of that comma, set it up so that there's only two ways to do it. And the comma was placed there so that the states retained power. And that comma, taking away the comma, took away states' power. The states had power without asking the federal government anything at all. They just did it, and it became an amendment. But in 31, Congress said, the Supreme Court said, no, we're going to take the comma out. Now you can't do it without asking Congress. There's only two ways now.
Just that simple. Just that simple.
Everybody understood that was doing this in 31. Nobody understands it today. Today, they think there's only two all the time. Never been more of that. I've had more arguments than one with people who read this and say, you don't know what you're talking about. That's ratification. Now, the comma, or, means it's not ratification. It's a separate item. Take the comma out, it isn't. That's very important. The Supreme Court did that to get better control of the people, keep the states under control. They already knew that nobody's going to follow the 10th Amendment. They have the 10th Amendment because they haven't been following the 10th Amendment forever already. By the way, here's an item. Here I have a copy of the Constitution. Now, if I went through this document with a red pencil and underlined everything in this document that's been violated by the Supreme Court or the federal government or the political parties or the state governments or the state political parties or whatever's going on with these kind of, and the political parties means DNR. If I went through this book and just underlined all the things that have been violated by those groups, those three groups, and foisted upon us as true, this book would be all red. There would be no black in it.
Wow.
I'm sorry, guys. All red.
Yep.
Why would it be all red? Because we didn't stop it. We listened to the media. We listened to the sound bites of those who were for something that they knew it wasn't right, but wanted to sell it to us. 16th Amendment, for example, they wanted to sell it to us. So they said, sound bites now. It'll only apply to the rich. It'll only apply $100,000 or more. It's only 3%. It'll never touch you. You don't have to worry about it. The rich will pay their fair share. Those sound bites went all over the media, newspapers everywhere. And the people said, I want them to pay their fair share. I don't want to be bothered by it. I don't make $100,000. I never will. Oh, if the rich will have to pay for stuff. Oh, this is really great. Let's pass this so that we can have all those benefits. And they did. Before the year was out, they lost them all. All. The number dropped from 100,000. The percentage went from 3 to 7. No one was free of it. Everybody had to file. And the IRS came as a way to enforce that. Private organization too, by the way, and not a part of the federal government. It's private. IRS, internet.
They're in Puerto Rico, right?
Well, I don't know where they're located. I just know it's a private group, part of the Federal Reserve, a branch of the Federal Reserve. It's all working together, guys. All of this is one thing. All of it is. The IRS only applies to us, but the Federal Reserve only applies to us. But the international guys called the World Bank and the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, and the main banks in Switzerland, the main central banks in Switzerland, they're all for the whole world doing exactly the same thing everywhere else. Huh. We're the only people that have rights codified to prevent these things from happening. Therefore, we are the only people that they really want to get to. They got to everybody else. It's easy. It's tough to get to us. We still believe a little bit in the law. The people, a little bit in the law. People in France, they're protesting. People in other places all protesting. They haven't got any guns. They can't do anything but protest. And here comes the military with guns, shoots them. Or not. But it's there. The threat is there. The direction is there. The meaning is there. In Russia, they did shoot them, i.e. slice them with their sabers. They did. They protested. They got permission to protest. They passed out pamphlets. They got permission to pass out pamphlets. And then the government sent the army in to whack them all up when they did. Folks, that's exactly where we're headed. Oh, by the way, that's in Dr. Zhivago. You can see that event portrayed in Dr. Zhivago. That's exactly where we're headed. So the peaceful protests that we have. Let me give you an illustration. January the 6th, people were in Washington, D.C. on the grounds, the grounds around the Capitol and around Congress, all that grounds, on the big grass place, and they were down at one end and the other end. Oh, yes, they were there. Now they're political prisoners, 400 or more. They're stuck in political prisons with no recourse or nothing. That's precisely the same thing that happened under the czars when they had a protest against what was wanted, the czars, against the czars. So the czars sent the military. First, they gave them permission to go do it. Okay, we were allowed to go do it. Then they sent their troops in to destroy it. In our case, the troops they sent in were the BLM, not the BLM Bureau, the BLM, Black Lives Matter, and the Antifa. Those are the troops they send in.
Yep.
They didn't send them in with guns and sabers. They just send them in there to do stuff that they could then blame on the others, and they have. So then where they collected up as many of those people as they could find, and they stuffed them in prisons in Washington. Now they're sending the DC police out into every area so they can get more of those people and stuff them in prisons. Folks, we're in it. We're in it. Folks, it's bad.
In the remaining 3 minutes we have, Dr. Proctor, I mean, to me, this is a very solemn hour. This is a very solemn program. I don't see a way out. I mean, short of, and I'm not advocating this, short of violence, I don't see a way out because we have given our consent.
I know, but there could be if the people would just join the only party that wants to get it and move in a political means quickly.
Yeah. And
political means quickly means do recalls of the people that are there and put people in that will follow the Constitution.
So somebody had a question on one of the comments. How do you join the Constitution Party? It's real simple. You go down to the courthouse, and if the Constitution Party is in your state, you go down to the courthouse and you switch parties to, from R to the Constitution Party. Am I right?
Well, I believe it would be an option on in every state.
Okay.
Because it is a legal party, so it will be an option in all states.
Okay.
Just check the box, and now you're a member of the Constitution Party. I mean, you don't have to do anything more than you did before, but you're a member of it, and it gives power to the party.
And it's a real simple task, folks, and do that because D, R, not going to save you. The Constitution Party is, in fact, I think people are looking for solutions. It's already there. It's already there. I've been doing
that solution for 2 years, and nobody seems to notice it.
Yeah.
If people had been paid attention 2 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be in the mess we're in today. And that's just 2 years ago.
Yep.
I was talking about militia and the Constitution Party 2 years ago. It's June of 19 when I started this on David Knight's show on InfoWars. Those two subjects, militias and Constitution Party. And if we'd just done those two things or even tried to do them, the people now, not the governments aren't going to do it, the people do those two things, we might not be in any of this mess we're in today.
And here we are. Folks, Richard Proctor, thank you so very much. Folks, it's Richard Proctor, ProvostInstitute.com, Liberty Series. And hey, folks, listen, that's a great idea. Patreon, go to ProvostInstitute.com, become a patron of Richard Proctor by signing up for Patreon. And you know what? Watch his shows. Go ahead,
I don't have any reference to it in my website.
Okay.
Go to Patreon and join it, and then put my name in, and it should take you right to this page you're looking at.
All right. So search that out on Patreon, and I will put a link to that in the program description box for this episode. Richard, thank you so very much for being flexible, and my apologies to Clay. I whatever happened. Got to go. Have a great night, folks. See you tomorrow. Steve Quayle. Good night.